Welcome back. I'm Connie Sokol, your host, and I am thrilled today to have not only a fabulous guest, but a former pupil of mine in one of my programs on the professional of how to be an influential writer, speaker, and media personality. And today, for our Purpose Path podcast, say that 3 times fast, we are doing a spotlight on Becky Kemp. Thanks for joining us, Becky.
Oh, thanks, Connie. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so thrilled to have you back. It's like sisterhood here. I'm not kidding. And the
It is.
reason why I chose Sweet Becky is because I have watched her start from having this idea and putting some things into it, but then coming to a place of unsurety and then lots of options and choices. What do I do? And then watching her do this walk, this purpose path. And sometimes for women listening, I get this a lot of, wow, it just seems like it comes so easy to X, Y, and Z or to whoever. But this is why we're spotlighting this today, because fulfilling your purpose doesn't mean you figured out one day and the next morning, poof, there's daisies. It means that it's about the process, it's the growth, it's the learning. That's all part of being able to fulfill your purpose and share your purpose-filled message. So that's what we're going to get into today. So just as a very quick bio for you to get to know Becky a little quicker, she is the host of the Word Effect podcast and has a book coming out soon of the same title, The Word Effect, which is fantastic, which you were beginning it in the program, which was so exciting. And her whole purpose, her whole desire is to help women create the life they love with power of words. And her whole life has been preparing her for being able to share this message, which is what I find with women anyway, is as we figure out what the training ground has been, we really get conviction about our purpose. So let's go through this, the anatomy of fulfilling a purpose. Let's start at the beginning, a very good place to start. What were some of your initial thoughts of, I really feel I need to share X message. I need to fill this purpose. What was your initial goal idea? I think this is what I'm supposed to do.
Well, initially I didn't know that I wanted to share anything. I was looking for help myself. I am a mom of 5 boys.
Enough said.
Enough said right there.
Yep.
And what I was experiencing through my life is that a lot of things weren't happening the way that I had thought they would happen, right? Which I've come to realize that's living life.
That's the status quo. Yeah.
Right. That's just how life is. But things weren't happening how I had thought. And I was suffering with a lot of anxiety, some depression, I had a lot of fear in me from an early age. And what I kind of stopped dreaming and stopped discovering. And I stopped even looking for my purpose, I think, because I was so busy trying to put out fires of everybody else's. And I kind of ran into this space of, when all these things happen, then I will take care of myself. Right. And I think that's a normal thing for us women, especially. It's like, what I talk about now is we tend to do more things in our action line. Like, I'm going to take more action, and then I'm going to feel better about myself. And I was like on this hamster wheel of doing that. So where the first thing for me of change was just accepting that I wanted to change myself and kind of acknowledging that there might be something more to this life than what I was experiencing.
Yes. And it sounds to me like it was more of, you were in the functional mode and then you're clicking into, I really need to live here and being able to do things, which is what helps you. I should have mentioned earlier too, she is a life coach with Becky Life Coaching. But this, to me, this is so familiar and so stunning that it all starts with, you're dealing with the problem and you're trying to find the solution. And that's what it sounds like. You started opening up to this bigger picture because you were trying to solve something that wasn't working.
Yeah. So the book that I'm working on, that you've helped me outline and get started with the program that we work together, the first word of the Word Effect, it's like a cycle, is acknowledging. And that was the start for me, was to even just acknowledge, Connie, and be like, I think I want more out of my life. There's something missing. That was the start of becoming with Becky, honestly, was that I started to acknowledge that I wasn't quite as content as I really thought I could be. And there was just this thing that all I can describe it is almost like something pressed upon my mind all the time. Like there was something that I needed to discover and I needed to find. but I didn't really know how until I started to ask. And that's the second power word, is just asking, acknowledging and then asking. And once you start to ask, it's like the universe starts to open up to you and
Yeah.
you start to see different things. And that was my first experience when a friend said to me, quit saying why all the time. Like, because I was always saying, well, why did this have to happen? And why this? And I was always kind of in
Victim
that
mode.
negative
Mhm.
thing. And she said, start asking how. How do you move forward with your story? And as I started to ask how, I started to see how powerful words were in my own life. And fast forward, I now want to help other women see that too, and help them, if they're feeling stuck, see that the power is within them to move forward instead of waiting for our circumstances to change around us.
I love that. And it looks like once you acknowledged and you asked, then you were moved to act. You were moved to move forward and take a step, even not knowing, exactly what that step should be or even where it would lead, but just saying, I can't stay here. I know my body is shifting, my mind is shifting, my soul shifting. I've got to move, even if I don't have a guarantee of where it's going.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And it's, to me, it's the process of becoming, because it's ever moving. And I'm doing things today that 7 years ago, I never expected when I started to just put the power of words in my life, right? Like, it's like the story keeps unfolding. But the best part about it is I'm doing things that I've always wanted to do. I am discovering who I am, and I am discovering my purpose as I just kind of step forward. And I think the first step is just acknowledging that I I want something more, or I'm looking for something more. And as I thought about it, I knew when we were going to talk, I thought investing in ourselves is so important, and taking time for ourselves. And I remember when I met you the first time and I heard about your Balance Redefined Professional program that you were doing, and I remember thinking, I can't do that. It was like, it was too intimidating. And the first thought, right? And then it was like, it costs money. And you're always thinking of where you put your money and different things. And I remember, I'll never forget when we did our, consult call, where the discovery call,
Yes.
and you were talking to me and I was asking my questions, and it was just a really safe place for me. And I remember getting off the phone. I think I told you, I need to, pray about this, think about this. I'll get back with you. And I remember getting off the phone and it was like, Becky, do this. This is exactly what you need to do. But when you sit and wait on things, sometimes you'll talk yourself out of it because of the unknown, because of the fear of like, well, I don't know all the questions they're going to ask me, and I don't know how to do these things. But I remember right after that, I called you back and I was like, I'm going to do it. But I've learned that as you invest in yourself and as you put yourself out there, everything opens up, and it just fell right into place, and it was
It's
the
that
best thing for me.
That is so the truth. And I've seen that over and over with women. And because I work with women, but I've seen that. And I remember one lady saying to me, who was explaining this to me, she said, it doesn't matter if it's $100 or $1,000 or $10,000, you're going to get that back. That's the way life works. It's because you're investing. And so that's what your return's going to be if you're doing good things and you want good things for other people. And I've seen that happen over and over. But I think as moms, especially, we're looking at as soccer camps and we're looking at grocery money and things like this, and we're saying we're last, we're always last, right? And this isn't a woe is me, that's just women's nature, is everyone else taken care of, and not realizing how much our investing in us actually brings abundance into our lives and our family's life. Have you seen, as you've been pursuing this purpose with, let's remember, your first focus, and that's what we talk about always, is family first. You're being a mom, and right, and trusting God, because we are faith-based women, trusting God to expand us to be able to do what we need to do, keeping those first things first. And I've noticed that women tend to experience surprising abundance and good things that happen to their family as they bloom and blossom in this. Have you noticed that at all for you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I feel like, number one, I found a remedy to help me deal with my anxiety and depression by the power of words.
Mm.
But then I feel this compelling force within me to help others, right? And so I love what service is and adding value to the world, because as you give to others, you get what you need, right?
Yes.
My boys have watched me do hard things. I mean, I just recently launched my podcast, The Word Effect. And it's something, Connie, I've been wanting to do for 2 years. I think I was talking about it when I did the course
Yes.
with you, right? It was like on the to-do list. Well, I finally put those steps into place and was able to take the necessary steps to get it done. And it's been so empowering to have my kids watch me and to have my husband watch me and to have other people watch me. And I was talking with a girlfriend yesterday at lunch, and she was telling me someone I'm not real close to, but someone that our kids associated. And she started telling me of her dreams. And it was like, so many of us have dreams, but we're like, but I don't know how to balance it. And I'm a mom and I don't know how to do this and I don't want to compromise. And I love how you have always taught that, like, I'm a mom and I love the word and instead of I'm a mom, but it's like I can do both. And I think that God allows us to find that balance as we
Absolutely.
practice. And sometimes we get off balance, but we got to keep working on it. So I have felt that as I've stepped forward, doors are opening, opportunities are coming, but I don't even know what the next ones are. I just have to keep it's the essence of faith, right?
Yes.
So
Oh, absolutely. And can you, as you go back through this journey, I remember, didn't we meet at that one conference that we had for, wasn't it the You Got This Women?
yes, that's
Yeah,
where
and that we were doing that conference for interfaith. And I remember being down in the area with all the booths and everything. And I remember meeting you. And anyway, I look back to that and then see where you are now. Are you floored at this shift? I've seen a shift in your confidence, in your clarity, in all of that. What were some of the fears or obstacles that you had to get through to get to this place? What would you say that comes to mind really quickly of a fear or an obstacle that you're like, I didn't think that I would be able to deal with that, but I did, and I'm on the other side.
well, I would say at that conference, I met your assistant Lamira.
Mhm.
And the I think the biggest fear is to admit it and acknowledge out loud that you have a dream.
Bingo.
And to just say, I want to do this, because I was helping Lamira move some furniture or something. And she told me she was your assistant. And then she was telling me, I didn't know much about what you did. And she was telling me about the programs. And as she's telling me, I'm like, that is exactly what I'm looking for. Like I was looking for that program, right? And I'm like, she's just telling me about it. And then I got introduced to you. And so for me, I think the biggest fear is just acknowledging that I have a dream or that I want to do it. And then I think the other fear would be being okay that you don't know all the answers. And the podcast I just released yesterday is called Stay Curious. And it just makes me laugh, because as women, it's hard to stay curious because we have to admit that we don't know everything. And for some reason, that's that perfectionism in so many of us to say, Connie, I don't know how to do this, or I'm not sure, and to be willing to make mistakes and to learn as you go. And as you said, my clarity's gotten better, but I've made a lot of mistakes and I'm still making mistakes. Launching the podcast was like one big thing, but now I'm like, well, how do I do this and how do I do that? And I think with every step, it's you have to look into something. But there's a really great book called Everything is Figure Outable.
Yes,
And
Marie Forleo. Yes.
yes, and she talks about the power of words too. The words, everything's figure outable. But so many times I have to remind myself, like, it's okay not to know. Take the step and then take the next step, and then be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself.
Oh,
So
I love all those. And I think it's interesting too, two things. When you were talking, I think it's such a beautiful symbolic thing that the first thing you did was had to speak the words aloud in order for this to just jumpstart and be the catalyst for all of this change and all of this beautiful up leveling that also up levels your family, because you can't help it as a woman. As a woman up levels, and this is why I really focus on women. I think why so many women, we all focus on women, is we know the women are really the hub, and that the way that the mom goes is the opportunity for the family to go. Doesn't mean that they will, but it's an opportunity. They see it in living color of how a mom sets goals or deals with failure or how she moves forward and takes the next step. So I love that that was the first thing, was saying those words, and that's so symbolic for you. And the second thing, the thing that I'm struck by when you're talking about, and I've seen it in my life and other women's lives that I've worked with, is the connection of women. That when we connect with other women, we unwittingly and almost always open doors for each other. We say the right thing, we provide the right comfort, we provide the next step, we give guidance. We do this so naturally. And I love that you, so many touch points along this road for you, I'm seeing in my mind's eye, has been connecting with other women. Have you felt that?
Yeah. So when I first started to see how the power words were in my life, my first idea, Connie, was to start a positive t-shirt and apparel business and to put positive messaging on shirts. And as soon as I had that idea, I went into the space of, it's not an original idea. Like it's not a good idea. And then I had this thought, if you're looking for this, someone else might be looking for this, because
Bingo.
I was looking for positive message shirts to wear to the baseball games of my 5 boys, right? And so then I started to think, do I need a business partner or not? And as I started to ask that question, it became very clear that my sister-in-law, Erin, and I were to team up. So for the last 4 years before I stepped into becoming a life coach, I did Becoming Threads. Well, as I've thought about it, my favorite part of that was the connecting with women. Not so much the inventory and the setting up at the boutiques, but it was when I would have a shirt that said, let's say, keep it simple. And someone would say, I have to have that shirt because, and tell me their story. And I
Ah,
think there's such power in women's stories. And that, I believe, the two things that I love the most about why I feel compelled to help others, really, and that I love the most to do, is to offer service and to connect with
yeah.
women. And I think that the adversary honestly tries to keep us stuck in our bubble, stuck in ourselves, and we forget to look outside of ourselves and realize we are more similar than we are different. That we're all wanting more out of this life and we're better together. So I do think that's so true.
And I have seen that what women can do when they are connecting together, when they even just touch point, when they naturally help each other. I love that Quaker proverb, I'll lift thee and thee lift me and we'll ascend together. That
Mhm.
is really the genesis of so many women's mindset. And that's kind of how we're wired. We feel more joy when we are helping one another to rise. And I think that's why there's such, in our day, this pushback of comparison, because that is just the death to women's friendship and helpfulness and kindness and love. And I love that you keep using the word service, because whatever we do, it is all having to come from that lens of, how can I serve you? How can I take my experience and serve you? And I love that this is such a personal thing for you and such an origin story for you of using that experience of you with words and how you're going to help other women, how you are helping them. So take me, if you would, take me through the steps of, so you had the idea, you acknowledged it out loud, then we met, and then you had started the store a little bit with your sister-in-law, and you're doing that, and then we meet at the thing, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do the program, and then you start the program. So what kind of take us through what kind of steps to get you to where you are here? What were some of the touch points that you did?
Yeah, so I'd probably been doing Becoming Threads. I had a booth at that You Got This event
Yes.
with shirts, and then so I was there, but I was having that nagging, or I don't know if we call it nagging, but that
Edging.
feeling that presses on you
Yes.
that there's something more. And I just kept feeling like I wanted to get into speaking and I wanted to get into coaching. And I had always wanted to write a book. I just had always wanted to write a book, but even to acknowledge that out loud is hard to do, because it's like, I mean, I don't know that I can write a book. I don't know, but I kept having that feeling. And then I kept just seeing the power of words, and everywhere I looked, they were changing my life. And I just kept having this thought of, I wanted to share a book about how the power of words changed my life, in hopes that it might help somebody else. And so that was kind of the start. And then, like I said, it was like I was I was looking for something to help me. I need mentors and I need coaches. I can't do it by myself. And thank goodness I don't have to. And what I would recommend to anyone that's like thinking about it, this is how I've just decided. It's like I could have probably figured this out, but it would have taken me 20 years. Or I, in the 3 months that I worked with you that first time, I outlined my book. I was given the tools to outline the book because it was in my head swirling around, but I had to get it out. And I remember you always just saying, get your bum in the chair and write. You know what I mean? Right. And I had to do that. I had to like set my timer 25 minutes and then I'd take a breather and then I'd do it for 25 more minutes. And so I think realizing for me, one of the big things was that it's okay to have a coach. It's okay to have a mentor. It's okay to, like I said, invest in yourself, learn from others. Cause I learned so many things, not only from you, but the other women that I was in the group with. And I still keep in touch with a few of them because we connected, we bonded. So that, and then I think the other thing is just being willing to let it unfold how it unfolds. So when I was in the program with you, I wasn't planning that Becoming Threads was going to kind of phase out. But as I've gone along, my sister-in-law needed to take a step away from the business. And then 2020 has been this year of more discovery for me, of all the years, right? But I got certified as a life coach through the life coach school and all these different things. 6 years ago, I wasn't thinking about life coaching. That wasn't on the radar. It was on making t-shirts. But like, I feel like my path has just kind of been led. And I'm just learning to listen to that still small voice within me that says, this is your next step.
Oh, I love that. And I think for women listening, it's so good to hear those specifics. In fact, so many studies back up that successful people use mentors and coaches. Yes. And the really highly successful people have 4, 5, even 7 coaches for different areas of their lives. And the reason why, and I've seen this too, is it ups the timeline. You get intense spiritual, emotional, mental growth. And you're able to, they build bridges to all of the way. I think about it a lot where I helped co-host a conference and it was Dr. Stacy Taniguchi, and he takes people up and climbs Everest all the time. Right?
I love his YouTube video. It's so good.
Great. You guys should check him out. It's so, so good. But he was showing video of them, they go and they do these metal ladders and they plot it all out and they tell you where the crevices are going to be and all this stuff you could never do on your own. You would not make it on your own. But because they paved the way, they built the bridges, they prepared everything, then people ascend in an incredible amount of time, record time, and then come back down. And it's fantastic. And I see that for anybody who's going out and mentoring or helping or coaching, that's our job, is to turn back and say, look, here's some different ways that you can go about it. Not that we are the I Ching or that we have the one way, not that, but here's things we've learned to make life hacks and make it easier for you. And I love that. I remember when you went through the program, you really dug in and you learned how to speak, you learned how to write, you learned how to do podcasts. You got some of these file drawers open and got this information. And then look how you built on it. And I love to, and I want to make this point for people listening, and let's talk about this for a second. You'll get excited. There's a timeline that's a pattern for fulfilling our purpose. And it's this cycle. And we go through that. We have the initial energy and it's so exciting and it's the vision. And then you start doing the nitty gritty. And then there's things out of your control. And then there's God's way of going about it that you're like, what? But I had this beautiful plan. And especially as moms, that's why we always focus on mom first, because relationships first. But that doesn't mean you can't keep progressing in these areas. But I'm sure I've noticed on your posts in this last year, you had plans and you wanted to do things, but then things shifted, right? So how did you make peace with that shifting, knowing that you have this vision, you've got some skills, you're ready to roll, and then life sort of hands you a curveball? What did you do to adjust to that?
Well, yeah, in 2019, it was November. That's when my sister-in-law came to me and said, Becky, I can't do Becoming Threads anymore. And I knew it was coming in within me, but I was just holding on so tightly, Connie, to keep her, she was so wonderful. And I was scared to be by myself. I'm not going to lie. I got fearful. I was like, I need a partner. I need someone. And I remember crying to my husband and saying, why is this happening? And he's like, Becky, this is everything that you're wanting. This is the door opening to the next space that you want to go. Well, sometimes when the door opens, you want to get angry because there's nothing stopping you but yourself, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that was like that next step. And then the other thing is when I started life coach certification, it was in March of 2020. I started at Connie, and the next week COVID happens. Now, the certification was all virtually, but I went from having my schedule that all my kids were going to be in school and I was going to do the certification virtually for the next 6 months, to homeschooling my kids, teaching them, trying to get certified. And I kept thinking, why is this happening now? Why is this happening now? And anytime I start to ask that question, why, I have to remind myself that is not an empowering question for me, because it gets me stuck and I start to spin in the negative. So instead, it was like, how do I handle this? How do I handle it? Now that we're at the end of 2020, I'm like, oh, I got through it. We adjusted everybody's schedule. My kids passed their classes and I passed my certification.
It's all good.
And the house is still standing, right? And so I think sometimes we have to remember there's opposition in all things. And that doesn't just mean good and bad. It just means, and this is what I've learned as a coach, 50% of our life is really good and 50% is hard. But that doesn't mean that we're doing something wrong. Meaning it's just like it's the 50-50 of life. So with being an entrepreneur, there's 50% of it that you're going to really love. And there's probably 50% that you're not going to like. But like I love recording the podcast, but figuring out how to do the podcast was really hard for me because it required me to learn new things and ask questions,
skills and
yeah. And I'm still learning. I'm not a master like you yet, but you know what I mean? Like I watch you and I'm like,
yeah. No, that's so true. And I love the points that you make. I love it. It's the sound of music principle, which is the where God closes the door, he opens a window somewhere.
yes.
Right. And then I love the point that you make of, but yeah, I see that openness, but I don't know that I want to walk through it because I'm so scared. And I talk a lot about that gap, the mind the gap in England and the subway station where there's from where you are to where you want to be, there's this gap. And we have to Indiana Jones step out on that invisible ledge. And it's taking the step. I always say you get it in the doing. There is no witness until after the trial of your faith. You have to take that step that feels right in your soul, but scared to your mind. And you just have to do it. You have to take the step. And I love that we can give ourselves grace through, I'm a faith-based person through Jesus Christ, but you know that you're like, I take that step. Was it the right step? Well, it doesn't seem like it because it didn't really seem to work out. But guess what? That step plus the other two steps all get you exactly where you want to go when you didn't see it like that. Like you were saying, her bowing out, you're like, oh, I'm free falling. But actually, I love that your husband pointed out, this is the obstacle is the way in the name of that book. It is the way. It is the thing that is making you develop the skills that you have to develop for the very place you want to get to, that promised land, for whatever that looks like. I love so much of this. So you did that, and then you did Speakers Academy. You joined a National Speaking Association. You did Speakers
Which
Academy.
I have to say, I joined the National Speakers Association because you recommended it. I never would have known about it. And so like from having a mentor and you coaching me, you gave these suggestions. And for some reason that caught my attention. And I looked into it and then I went there and then I did, the Speakers Academy. And again, 5 years ago, that was not even on my radar. And so I just can't even emphasize, you never know the road you're going to take, but the people will show up in it that will give you the guidance that you need.
Oh, I love it. It's that Cinderella thing of be brave, have courage, be kind, have courage kind of thing of just be your bold self, which I like to always say, just be your bold self. And even when you don't feel like it, right? Just be your bold self. And I love that you bring up this point of how one thing led to another. And it's just staying open to those steps because I see, and then you've created this podcast and you're almost done with this book. And it's not an end game. It's a journey and you're reaching people every step of the way. I love that you have learned these different skills. You've been open to them. You become this Becoming with Becky. You have been your own tagline. You are becoming every step of the way, which makes you more powerful and helpful to help women in their journey. I was there, and here's a bridge that I built, and you can try that if you want to try that. I love it. What, any other advice? You've just given some great advice to get mentors, maybe do a course or a program, something, take a step, follow that interest, acknowledge that, and start defining that dream of what it looks like. Don't worry that it's going to take away from your family. It will bring abundance to your family because you're becoming and learning and growing, and they can't help but learn that too. Is there any other advice? I love that you said, say it out loud. You don't need to have all the answers. And then look for the open doors. Well, is there any other advice that you would give to women in these steps that you've taken to where you are now? And I have to say, if you haven't seen, go to Becky Kemp, Becoming with Becky. Isn't it becomingwithbecky.com? Is that the right one?
Yeah, becomingwithbecky.com is my website.
Yep. Go and check out her speaking video. I saw that and I was like, holy cow. We did little cell phone in the program. I did little beginner things so they could get a feel for it and get the before and after kind of thing. And I was blown away by just how amazing you were in such a short period of time. So anyway, any other advice to see where you were and see where you are now? Any one piece of advice that you haven't shared that you would love to share?
I think what keeps coming to my mind is to just show up, to show up every day. And that means to me showing up. Some days I have plans to get all these things done for my business and it doesn't happen, but I have to show up as a mom. And other days, I don't get to this or get to that, right? But what I found, Connie, is the hardest thing is showing up. The hardest thing is just getting out of bed every day and trying to become better, right? And you talked about like comparing and how hard that is for us. And I heard at a National Speakers Association event one time, a lady that had 20 years of experience, and she was amazing. And she said, don't look to someone that's so far ahead of you that you can't relate to. Like, find someone that's just a step or two ahead of you. And that was really helpful for me, in that as I show up every day, different things and people come into my life that are helping me. But when I get too stuck in my own head and my own thoughts, that keeps me fearful. And so that's where we want to learn to manage our minds and say, okay, how do I show up today? And so many times I just have to be like, how am I showing up today? And when I think of helping others, then it takes the focus off of me.
Yes.
So that is what I would recommend, is showing up however it is today, being open to possibility, and then trying to not make everything like a reflection of you, and more like, how can I be of service to others?
I love it. Show up, be ready to serve. I love it. And you're exactly right. That takes that pressure right off because you're just there to be helpful and you don't have to put any other parameters on that of being someone you're not. Love. Oh, this is such a joy. That's why we've gone a little longer today, because I seriously can tell us if we grab some ice cream and pajamas, like, oh, we're for 2 hours. I would love to let the women know if they want coaching, if they want to know more about the Word Effect podcast or the book that's coming out, where can they find you? Tell us once again.
Yeah. So my website is becomingwithbecky.com, and you can find the Word Effect podcast on all podcast carriers. You can get coached. I help women learn how to begin and become the person they've always wanted to be. And I do a 30-minute free complimentary consultation where we just it's surprising, Connie, how many people have never even acknowledged, and I'm sure you experience this all the time, what their dream is. And so many women, especially kind of I would say middle age, I don't mean that derogatory, but they've forgotten who they were to become because they got kind of distracted in life and they forgot to live their life. And so that's what I want to help. And so they can find all that information on my website.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And you are just a gem. Oh my gosh. And we still need to do something about that ice cream. So we'll have to check in together after that. Ladies, I hope you've gotten as much out of this as I have. It's been so inspiring. As always, if you love this stuff, rate, review, and subscribe below. And if you want other goodies like the free opt-ins, the Joy Challenge, the Find Your Purpose Challenge, if you want mini courses, if you want the big course, if you want to be a speaker, writer, media personality person and do the program with us. And I'm also doing retreats now for disciple thought leaders who are taking what they love to do and then really leading people to the Savior through it, then check it out at conniesokol.com. You can always reach me on all social media. Would love to connect with you because this is our day and age, women. We are to arise, awake and arise and step up. And it is our time. Thanks so much, Becky. So appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Connie. It was wonderful.
Take care. Remember, ladies, do what you got to do today to take your next step to live your purpose-filled life.